Resident Evil, or Biohazard as it's known in Japan, first released on Sony's PlayStation in March of 1996, the game was a critical and commercial smash, spawning numerous sequels across several different platforms, a well-written series of books, toys, and... yeah, those two. Anyway, Resident Evil didn't land on Saturn until August of 1997, more than a year after its PlayStation debut and only a few months shy of its long-awaited sequel. The story is classic B-grade horror. There's been a rash of cannibalistic murders plaguing Raccoon City. The Special Tactics and Rescue Service, otherwise known as STARS, sends their Bravo team out to investigate the surrounding mountains, losing contact shortly thereafter. The Alpha team finds their comrades downed chopper, but no bodies. Then they're viciously attacked by zombie dogs. Yeah, zombie dogs. Isn't that fucking awesome? Anyway, their own helicopter pilot turns yellow and leaves them to die. That's when they take shelter in a mysterious mansion, and all fucking hell breaks loose. This cutscene is gold. It's stylish, gory, and never fails to put me in the mood. The North American version was re-edited for violence and smoking. I find that odd, considering Solid Snake lights up regularly in the Metal Gear series. The overall style and presentation still holds up today. 3D characters and objects over pre-rendered 2D backgrounds using multiple fixed camera setups that cut from one to the next as our character of choice moves onward. Really, this is a beautifully designed game. That feeling of confinement, that ever-present sense of dread whenever you turn a corner or open a new door, it's like you're trapped in a really good horror flick. Sure, much of the fear factor is lost after you've played it half a dozen times, but not entirely. Some things just stick, like the hunters. The music and sound design is flawless in my opinion. Every location has its own aural identity that perfectly complement the visuals. This makes it all the more unsettling whenever things get quiet. Now that's how you do it. Also, best exploding head sound effect ever. As for playable characters, you can play as either Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine. No matter which character you choose, the trek through this nightmarish world of survival horror remains largely the same. You'll have to solve many puzzles by finding keys or pushing crates or statues, all while fending off the mutated horde of walking dead, dogs, crows, hunters, whatever the fuck these things are, plants, and so on. This is no easy feat since ammunition, healing items, and ink ribbons used for saving the game are limited. Well, that's debatable somewhat. If you play as Chris, this is most certainly true. Chris can take more damage than Jill, though he can only carry 6 items at a time, which is all sorts of irritating since he needs small keys in order to unlock drawers containing much needed ammo. Jill's journey is considerably less painful. Sure, she can't take as much damage, but Jill can carry up to 8 items, has access to a bazooka early on, has way more ammo, and she just so happens to be a master of unlocking.
It'd be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Seriously, this line is brilliant. So she can unlock all the drawers and even some doors without a care in the world. Both Chris and Jill have partners. Chris has Rebecca, lone survivor of the Bravo team. Jill has Barry, the senior Alpha team member, and the most helpful NPC you'll ever meet. Really, he'll hook you up with ammo and even bypass a puzzle or two. Hashtag Team Barry. Anyway, there's plenty of real estate to explore, like the guardhouse, some underground tunnels, and a secret laboratory, but you're gonna spend a lot of time in the mansion. Throughout these environments, there are these item boxes. Yeah, now you know why those item slots are so important. You can't drop items wherever the hell you want. Instead, you drop them off and or pick them up here. The item boxes are connected, so that cuts down on the backtracking a bit. Many gamers have complained about these bottomless footlockers over the years, though I have no idea why. Seriously, why would you want to drop shit off in one room only to find that you need it 6 or 12 rooms away, then run all the way back to get it? I find that much more frustrating. Another critique that's clung to the franchise like shit to a mattress for 7 years is that tank controls suck. Okay, no matter which way your character's facing, you push up to move forward, down to move back. It may be a tad rigid, but it works. Honestly, I don't remember players raising such a stink before Resident Evil 5, but it's like, you know what, fuck it. Some players bitch about inverted controls, and I don't get that either. On the plus side, the Saturn port has auto-aim, a feature the PlayStation original lacked. Also, being able to use a Saturn controller is a tremendous improvement. I've never liked the PlayStation's 4-button D-pad. With Saturn, my run and dodge technique feels more fluid and natural. Thank you, Sega. One of the things I've always loved about this series is the replay value. Each character has several different endings and special items to unlock upon completion, like a rocket launcher with unlimited ammo, which is fucking amazing. You also get a special key giving you access to new threads for both characters. Mind you, the only way you'll unlock the rocket launcher is through completing the game in less than 3 hours. Yeah, it took me many tries back in the day, but I did it, and it was glorious. Doing it again for this review was a real treat since I hadn't played the game for a few years, so I'm like, yay, I still got it. The Saturn port has a wealth of extra features not found on PlayStation, such as battle mode, unlocked once you've beaten the game. You mow through several rooms with limited ammo and health items, killing everything in sight, then moving on to the next. The best part is you get to kill Zombie Wesker and a Gold Tyrant. Go bling. Oh, but that's not all. You get 2 bonus costumes, which are completely different from those found in the locked closet. The only way to access these duds is through a code. Hold down the left and right shoulder buttons on the second controller during this screen, then press start on the first controller. Boom! Saturn exclusive costumes. Very cool. Okay, let's compare graphics and the overall performance with PlayStation. The game was developed using Silicon Graphics hardware, and PlayStation was chosen as the lead platform. Texture maps are detailed and smooth. Light sourcing and transparencies are used throughout, giving the visuals a lifelike look and feel. The door animations are used as a means to instill fear in the player, as well as mask load times. Everything works. On Saturn, textures are more vibrant, but each and every pixel stands out. There's very little blending, if any. Light sourcing is present, though not as pronounced. Also, the transparencies have been restricted to drop shadows. There's one more slight performance setback: the load times. You know, the door animations? They're roughly 2 to 3 seconds longer than PlayStation. Otherwise, Resident Evil on Sega Saturn is a solid port. It may not look as polished as Sony's, but the added features make it my personal preference. The Evil's now 20 years strong, and the original is still my favorite. Not to say the rest suck, because I do love Resident Evil 2 and Code Veronica, but they didn't hit me quite as hard as the first. Resident Evil is something special. So many sleepless nights, playing game after game in the dark, killing zombies, looking for secrets. I miss those days. And the voice acting.
It's a weapon. It's really powerful, especially against living things. Better take it with you.
But how about you, Barry?
I have this.
Of all the sequels, prequels, and spin-offs I've played over the last 18 years, Resident Evil 2 has yet to be outshone. Unleashed in January of 1998 on PlayStation, Resident Evil 2 was a resounding success both critically and financially, shattering sales records as well as our nerves as we once again entered the world of survival horror. This time, the fear was epic. So epic, in fact, this fucker fills 2 discs. Damn. Really, it's like we've gone from Alien to Aliens. While the first Resident Evil was a cold sweat-inducing horror romp, Resident Evil 2 is a heart-stopping thriller, bursting with zombies, riddles, action, and melodrama. Believe it or not, a Saturn port was once in development, though its cancellation was announced in October of '98 by series creator Shinji Mikami, stating, "We were developing Biohazard 2 for Saturn, but found out that it's difficult to achieve the same level of quality on the Saturn that the PlayStation version had." So, in layman's terms, Capcom knew Saturn had all but one foot in the grave and decided to bury the port along with it. Really, if quality were an issue, I sincerely doubt this piece of shit would have ever seen the light of day. Thankfully, it shuffled its merry way to Sega Dreamcast. It picks up 2 months after the original when rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy rolls into town only to find Raccoon City completely overrun by the Walking Dead. Meanwhile, Claire Redfield has arrived in search of her brother Chris, yeah, that guy from the first game. Once their paths cross, they commandeer a squad car and make haste toward the police station, then bickety-bam, zombies and explosions. These cutscenes are fucking amazing. It's been 18 years since this game's release, and they're just as thrilling now as they were then. If only it were a feature-length movie. Now, if you've played Resident Evil, you know what to expect here. Maze-like environments, ridiculous puzzles, and a healthy dose of zombie carnage. Not to mention undead dobies, giant arachnids, bloodthirsty crows, mutant plants, and these. Oh, ew. They look like flayed penises with legs. So you play as both Leon and Claire. Many puzzles are shared, though some are meant specifically for that character, much like their weaponry. Leon has a 12 gauge and one of the finest hand cannons ever crafted. Claire wields a bow gun and the grenade launcher. They have their own support characters too. Ada Wong teams up with Leon midway through, and Claire looks after little Sherry Birkin, though neither one is particularly helpful. You control them for a fleeting moment, breaking up the action while advancing the plot, and that's it. Nothing compares to you, Barry.
Yeah.
The difficulty's gender neutral this time around, selected whenever you start a new game. Leon's no stronger than Claire, and Claire's no weaker than Leon. Even better is that they have up to 8 item slots starting. Way to be progressive, Capcom. Obviously, much of the game takes place in a police station. Like the Spencer estate, this is where you'll spend most of your time, and that's not a bad thing. It's gigantic, rich with details that make it feel as if people lived and died here. The cluttered desks, shattered glass, and blood-soaked floors tell their own story, and it's a good one. Character animations are a real highlight. Whenever you've taken significant damage, your character of choice clutches their abdomen and shuffles. That's a nice touch. In the original, you'd have to pause the game to know whether or not they needed more weed. Not that it matters with Dreamcast, since health and ammo is conveniently displayed through your VMU. I'm sure it's a handy feature for rookies, but veterans should know to reload often, rendering this innovation pointless. The audio is phenomenal, from the unsettling music cues to that jaw-tightening sound of nails clicking against concrete. Resident Evil 2 has the best soundtrack of them all. I especially love the music. The first time you enter that police station, you know you're in for some deep fear. As for the control, this is classic Resident Evil, though the status menu has migrated to the B button, making it more accessible. If you don't care for those tank controls, I suggest you steer clear, for nothing has changed. I, on the other hand, happen to like my bipedal Panzer, so I'm happier than an unemployed plumber in San Diego. My one bellyache here is the analog stick. It works well enough, I guess, though I couldn't get a feel for it. I had the same problem with the DualShock reissue on PlayStation as well as the Nintendo 64 port. Do yourself a favor and stick with the D-pad. You can thank me later. The story has been broken up into 2 scenarios going on concurrently. Beating Scenario A with either protagonist will unlock Scenario B, where you can play as the opposite character, where you'll gain access to environments and puzzles unique to that scenario, while warding off an old friend, Mr. X, otherwise known as Tyrant. Yeah, he's gotten a makeover since our last encounter. This overgrown flasher shows up early on and proceeds to make your night a living hell, showing up periodically throughout the game with little to no warning. You'll knock him down several times, but he just keeps coming. Though be sure to check his body whenever you wear him out. He has presence. Anyway, the zapping system has its pros and cons. One major pro is that you have to play as both characters if you want the whole story, unlike the original where you can play as either character, though the narrative remains the same. Also, decisions you make during your first playthrough will affect the second, like this locker. When you first encounter it, there's a submachine gun and an item pack. If you take the item pack in Scenario A, the machine gun will be there in Scenario B. Now, that brings me to my first complaint. Besides the locker and a few security gates, these are the only instances in which our decisions matter. I think it's safe to say that this feature is woefully underutilized. Another issue I have is that many puzzles in the second scenario are recycled from the first. Ultimately, these are gripes. I can look past the repetitive nature of certain puzzles, and the zapping system's still a neat idea, though I wish these concepts had been fleshed out and perfected. Still, they get an A for effort. As if I haven't given you plenty of reasons to play this game over and over again, there's a boatload of extra features. Besides bonus costumes for both characters and a 6-shooter for Claire, there's a few mini-games that will keep you busy long after the credits roll. The fourth survivor has you playing as Hunk, an Umbrella operative taking a G-Virus sample back to the extraction point. It plays a lot like the battle game on Saturn, but there's a story to it this time. Like, this was going down while Leon and Claire were trying to escape. That's pretty cool. Then we have Extreme Battle, where you can play with Leon, Claire, Ada, and holy fucking shit, Chris Redfield. Now that is fucking sweet. Unlocking everything is way more challenging now, thanks in large part to the ranking system. Your rank is dependent on your completion time, how often you save, if at all, and first aid sprays used. Trust me, the rewards are well worth the effort. So, how does Dreamcast fare when compared to the PlayStation? Honestly, there's no comparison. Not to say the PlayStation original looks terrible, on the contrary, it's one of the best games available for the console, boasting gorgeous visuals and brilliant CD quality audio. Regardless, Sega's Dreamcast sports a high-resolution output and superior audio capabilities. Textures are even sharper, though the backgrounds look soft by comparison. Not bad, mind you, but worth noting. Of all the ports I've played, this is the best by far. Resident Evil 2 set the bar so goddamn high it was hard to imagine any sequel capable of surpassing it. As time would later prove, I wasn't the only one lacking vision. Calling it Resident Evil 3 is kind of a misnomer, seeing as how it's not a direct sequel. Instead, it's a side story that takes place a day before and 2 days after Resident Evil 2. We follow Jill Valentine as she makes her escape from Raccoon City while evading Umbrella's latest monstrosity, Nemesis. Of course, Jill has support. Carlos Oliveira, one of many mercenaries sent by Umbrella to rescue raccoon survivors and blow town. Wah wah. Next to Rebecca Chambers, he's the most annoying partner I've ever had, thanks to the atrocious Hispanic lilt.
I know. You want to ask me out? All the foxy ladies love my accent.
No, Carlos, they don't. You make Oded Fair look like Antonio Banderas. Barry, where are you when I need you? Unlike its predecessors, Raccoon City is now your playground. Narrow alleyways, barricaded streets, and wrecked vehicles litter the urban landscape, along with a wide assortment of zombies, of course, and plenty of new creatures to make you squirm. You're not confined to the streets, though. Jill can raid many of the surrounding establishments, as well as Raccoon City's familiar police department. Gameplay remains the same: puzzles, keys, cranks, and so on. Ammo is limited, as are healing items, though the situation is much worse, for enemy encounters have doubled since the last entry. Seriously, the action is unrelenting. There's a contingent of zombies, skinned puppies, and brain suckers round every corner. On top of that, there's the Nemesis. It's reminiscent of Resident Evil 2's second scenario, where you have to battle Mr. X throughout, but the similarities end there. Nemesis makes Mr. X look like the goddamn Avon lady. This 7-foot-tall monosyllabic rapist can run, punch, grapple, and yeah, he's packing some serious heat. As deadly as this bastard already was, did he really need a fucking rocket launcher? Thankfully, Nemesis can run out of ammo. Regardless, it's a major pain in my virgin ass whenever he appears, which is often. You are given an option before most encounters, where you can either fight or flee. Some altercations are unavoidable, but there's usually a choice. This actually gives the game some replay value, for every choice will affect the narrative. If you opt to run for dear life, be warned, Nemesis will chase after you. Once you've blown through a few doors, you'll lose him temporarily. In addition to multiple choice, the controls received a light overhaul. For starters, you don't have to press the action button to go up and down stairs. When I first saw this, I thought to myself, sweet, makes it that much easier to avoid enemies. It's not like they can climb steps or anything. Then this happened. You bastards. There's the quick turn where you press back then run. I love this feature since turning in place could be agonizing in previous entries. Then we have the dodge mechanic, which works most of the time, whether you want it to or not. You press the aim button, then action once an enemy's within reach. You may be thinking, wait, isn't that how you fire any given weapon? Yes, it is. This function can lead to irrational fits of pre-adolescent rage, though it has saved my ass on several occasions, so I guess I have no right to bitch. However, there's one feature I will bitch about, and that's ammo mixing. Yeah, you'll find these tubs of gunpowder that are mixed via this reloading tool, creating several different rounds for your wide selection of firearms. Why is this even necessary? It's not like the herbs where you can simply combine them. No, instead you need this goddamn unitasker. Just takes up space and eats into your time. Another issue I have is the difficulty. There are two options available to us, easy and hard. The latter is like every other biohazard where resources are limited. This actually sucks now that the game wants to inundate you with action. Admittedly, this does add to the fear factor, though it lacks balance. There are few instances where I can lose myself and revel in the carnage. The easy setting's a slight improvement, starting you out with a shitload of guns and plenty of ammunition, yet it still challenges the player. Really, I swear the difficulty hasn't changed at all. It's like the developers gave us an arms cache and said, here's some bullets, go nuts. I'm okay with that, I guess. It's just that now I feel like a chump. The graphics and sound are comparable to Resident Evil 2, so no complaints there, but I can't say the same for the narrative. Aside from the explosive finale, the story isn't all that memorable. Resident Evil 2 actually took the time to develop its characters, answer some questions, and it left you feeling satisfied. Nemesis doesn't. Jill has some meat, but Carlos may as well be cardboard. Hell, his teammates are more interesting than this Latin honeypot. If the developers had given Carlos his own scenario, maybe...
Think about it!
Whoa, yeah, maybe not. Still, it would have been nice had they given us the option. The last two installments gave players two protagonists to choose from. Resident Evil 2 upped the ante, giving both characters two scenarios each. Now we have Resident Evil 3, and there's only one. I'm like, seriously? How is this an improvement? If the story were longer, more involved, I would have let it slide, but... yeah. The Dreamcast version, again, utilizes the VMU, yet it only displays health this time. Not entirely sure why, but as I said in my review for number 2, it doesn't matter. Visuals are solid minus the backgrounds. They don't look any better than its PlayStation counterpart. If anything, the low-res nature of said backgrounds has been magnified somewhat now that the 3D elements look sharp as fuck. Nevertheless, I side with Sega. Resident Evil 3 isn't a bad game. It does have its moments. It's just that after Resident Evil 2, it's a weak follow-up and a poor lead-in to what would be the next step in evil.
I am Alexia Asher.
Resident Evil Code Veronica on Sega Dreamcast, or as I like to call it, Resident Evil 3. In fact, Code Veronica had been described early on as a true follow-up to Resident Evil 2, but due to contractual obligations to Sony at the time of its development, Capcom restricted numbered releases to PlayStation. That ideology went out the window once Capcom decided to hop in bed with Nintendo, creating Resident Evil 4 in 2005 as a GameCube exclusive, which didn't last long either. Code Veronica was a big deal for many reasons. It was the first game in the series to debut on a console other than PlayStation, and it ditched the pre-rendered backgrounds found in previous installments, opting for real-time 3D environments. I know Resident Evil Survivor was released prior to Code Veronica, adopting a first-person perspective as well as 3D environments, though it doesn't count. Survivor is a spin-off and has no place in the main canon, first of all. Second, it's kind of boring. There were some cool ideas, the story is intriguing, and the Japanese version made use of Namco's GunCon, a feature that didn't find its way west, I'm sad to say. In the end, this experiment in evil suffered. It's like Capcom wanted to make a rail shooter that wasn't a rail shooter, if that makes any sense. You move around as if you're in a first-person shooter, yet firing a weapon's classic Resident Evil, meaning you have to stop dead in your tracks, aim, then fire. The advantage is that the player can set their sights on arms, legs, etc. It sounds neat, but doesn't work well, not with a controller at least. Using a D-pad, aiming is slow and imprecise. This is a serious problem since all of your enemies move. Looks like fun, right? Okay, that was a bit of a tangent. Back to Veronica. It picks up 3 months after Resident Evil 2. Players are graced with a John Woo-like cutscene where Claire Redfield evades Umbrella's security force.
Don't move.
After an exhilarating chase, Claire is captured and imprisoned on a remote island that doubles as a base of operations for the diabolical Umbrella Corporation. Our fearless heroine is knocked unconscious upon arrival, awakening hours later to the familiar cries of chaos. In other words, the base is attacked. Sorry, the melodrama's rubbing off. Anyway, the guard takes pity on the poor girl and releases her. From this moment forward, it's anarchy. Code Veronica was unlike any other Evil in regards to visuals. Character models rendered in real time that could project emotion beyond simple body language. Fans hadn't seen this level of sophistication outside of those wicked cutscenes. They're commonplace now, but they were astounding then. The overall presentation is, I dare say, a perfect marriage of Evil's cinematic style and 3D. Instead of those static 2D images of yesterday, the world now lives and breathes in 3D with dynamic lighting effects and a semi-fixed camera. It still looks like a movie cutting from one angle to the next, but the camera is now free to track and or follow the player as they sift through the detritus. Really, I feel Code Veronica was the last game in the main series that actually felt like Resident Evil. As much as I enjoy Evils 4 and 5, they're more like action games with some horror elements when it should be the other way around. So the game spread across 2 GD-ROMs, playing as Claire through the first half and Chris for the second. Yeah, it's one scenario with one ending, but Veronica's narrative is way more involved, while the game itself is twice as long as the original. If I have any grievances this time, it's the backtracking. This has been a staple of the franchise, though it rarely bothers me. With Code Veronica, I feel it's gone too far. There are 2 main locations here, Rockford Island and the Antarctic base. By the time you get to the Antarctic, you'll be able to draw a map of the island in your sleep. Once Claire's game comes to a dramatic end, you pick up as Chris and it's right back to the island. Yes, you get to explore this ball of sand all over again. Chris has access to different rooms now, but much of it is the same. Revisiting the Arctic isn't so bad, for there's a section that calls back to the original in a big way, and it's eerie. I mean, just look at it. The mansion is iconic, so this little reveal packs a serious punch for me. After having played the first 3 games back to back to back, it just feels like home again. Weird, right? As always, there's a supporting character, Steve Burnside. There's some mixed emotions here. While his voice is positively grating, the character is shockingly well developed, and he's easily the most helpful companion I've had since Barry. Fans often poke fun at the dialogue and his Canadian accent.
Relax, beautiful. I said I was sorry. My name's Steve.
Personally, I'll take Steve over Carlos any day of the week.
It drives him crazy.
If there's one character I can do without, it's Alfred.
You don't fool me! I am Alfred Ashford, commander of this base.
Yeah, that shrill fop is one of our main villains. Really? This twat waffle couldn't intimidate a 5-year-old into giving up their lunch money, let alone a Redfield.
Have it your way, then. You're just a rat in a cage anyway.
No wonder I don't like him. It's Billy Corgan.
Welcome, Claire.
At least he's interesting, I'll give him that. The gameplay hasn't changed much. It's all about those keys, crests, paintings, and doorknobs. Oh, if you think that's silly, how about a cannonball made of glass that must be smashed by a motion-sensing weight? Yeah, one misstep and you're dead. It's been a while since a puzzle could be a legitimate threat. I like it. Then we have the zombies. Code Veronica has them all, folks. The hunters have an encore, as well as the spiders. There are new threats like the Bandersnatch? I'm not even kidding. It may very well be the most irritating threat here since these elastic vagina goblins have long-range attacks. It's usually a slap upside the head, but every now and then they'll go for your dome and hold tight. Second to that are the moths. You may think they're no more troublesome than crows. Instead, they're even worse. These cockstains not only sprinkle poison dust everywhere, but they can latch onto your back and impregnate you with a parasite that won't let go until way later. One way or another, you're getting poisoned. Killing them is your best bet, but they respawn. If you dare backtrack, they will be waiting for you. I hate them. That's okay, I know how to work out my frustrations. Yeah, dual pistols. These are badass. There are 2 pairs available in the main game, the semi-automatic pistols and the submachine guns. You can concentrate your fire on a single target or lock onto multiple targets at once. If that doesn't stroke your barrel, nothing will. Really, I'm thinking the developers were big fans of John Woo. That's awesome. Additions found in previous games like gun parts or stage hazards are all here. The silly ammo mixer from Resident Evil 3 is absent, thankfully, though you can mix some gunpowder with arrows, making explosive rounds for the crossbow. That's more like it. Controls are solid, as always, similar to Resident Evil 3, but the dodge mechanic's long gone. Also, you have to press the action button to go up and down stairs again. Weird. Anyway, if you didn't like tank controls before, you won't like them now. Still, they've worked for me since 1996, so no complaints here. There are bonus features to unlock. I haven't earned the rocket launcher, so I can't show any of that. Fear not, I unlocked the battle game. Beat the main game any which way you can, and you'll be able to charge through an arcade-style shooter with infinite ammo. It may not sound like much of a challenge, but it has more to do with beating your time. It's still a fun game, and the best part is you can play as Claire, Chris, Steve, and Wesker. It even has a first-person view, which is pretty cool. Compared to Resident Evil 2, this is a light load in terms of bonus content. Aside from the sweet visuals, great gameplay, and its action-packed narrative, the lack of bonus features keep Code Veronica from surpassing Resident Evil 2. Regardless, Resident Evil Code Veronica is awesome. Before I wrap things up here, I want to talk about the ending. I fucking hate it. Not because it's bad, in fact, it's epic, and it sets up the next game with gusto.
Chris, promise me. Please promise that you won't leave me alone again.
I'm sorry, Claire, but it's not over yet. There's still something we've got to do.
You mean...
Yeah, it's payback time. We've got to destroy Umbrella. Now, let's finish this once and for all.
This ending left me thinking, holy shit, finally we're gonna see Umbrella fall. Chris, Claire, Jill, and Leon are going to corporate headquarters only to find that Wesker beat him to the punch, bringing the whole Umbrella narrative to a close while setting up a new threat. It will be glorious. Instead, this happened.
The whole affair gone public. The United States government issued an indefinite suspension of business decree to Umbrella. Soon its stock prices crashed, and for all intents and purposes, Umbrella was finished.
Really? Due to plummeting stock prices, Umbrella is wiped out in a goddamn narration? Are you fucking kidding me? You flushed 4 games worth of storytelling down the shitter because you got bored? Think about it for a moment. What if you had gone to see Return of the Jedi, and in the opening crawl it says, due to lack of support from the Senate, the Empire was crushed, and the entire movie was just about rescuing Han Solo from Jabba the Hutt? You'd be fucking pissed. Those first 4 games, yeah, even Nemesis, were pure evil. Horror that was campy, creepy, and compelling. Creative brain teasers that left you feeling accomplished. Gory, over-the-top displays of monster carnage. These elements defined survival horror for me in 1996. I'm sad to say I haven't seen it again since Code Veronica. This is where the series ended for me, as well as many fans I've come to find. If you have a Dreamcast, Code Veronica is essential. So turn out the lights, crank up the volume, load your controller, and embrace the fear.